Oh, g'day everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Weekend Wrap. Round 2 versus the Western Bulldogs didn't quite go the way we hoped, and a lot to talk about as we get into the game. And joining me, of course, as always, are my two cohorts. Big man, how you doing, mate?
Good, mate. Just put in my 3-2-1 votes for the BNF just while we waited.
Very good.
But no, yeah. Not too bad, mate. Bit flat after the result, but plenty to talk about.
100%. And of course, Brownie, how are you, son?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. Similar to Big Man, it was a bit flat after the game, especially since we got back in it, and I thought we were a fair chance at the end. But yeah, still, at least it was a good game, and we were competitive.
Yeah, 100%. Fair bit to talk about tonight. If people are wondering, if you want to go on stage tonight, you might get caught with a bit of an age verification thing. So if you do want to have a chat on Discord tonight, obviously we're live and interactive always. If you do want to have a chat on the show tonight, you may have to get your license out because you may have to do a bit of a verification before I can get you on, unfortunately. That's just one of those things. But obviously, thanks to everyone who's joined us on Discord and also on YouTube. Looks like a good crowd coming in tonight, which is augurs well for a good session. And there's nothing like a good session, is there, Brownie?
I'm about to find out, mate. But yeah, I'd agree.
Don't forget, if you haven't already joined us on Discord, if you're watching on YouTube, our Discord server runs 24/7, 365. It's a good time, and it's well worth joining. So get around it, and you'll have 24/7 chat. You'll have live game day chat, and of course you'll have access to chat during this cast as well. All right, why don't we just get cracking? I'll just see if that's working. Look, not a great result, obviously. I'll just put up the... we've got one more game. Still, did North get up in the end, did they?
Nah, West Coast.
West Coast got up? Oh, that's a shame, isn't it? Shame. We don't mind seeing West Coast get up, I don't think.
Wait, what?
But
are you happy? Did you want North to win?
No. I just thought North would get up, that's all.
Yeah,
I thought they would get up. But, yeah, so... sorry, I'm just getting myself organised here. And the live scores, the final scores for the round are up on the thing. We won't cover them tonight. Obviously, Macca and I will cover them on Tuesday night. But the ladder's starting to take shape, although we've still got a few... why is that not working? A few teams to have a bye, but it's starting to take shape now. I can actually see it. Gold Coast and the Western Bulldogs, the undefeated sides, on 3 wins. Sydney and Hawthorn on 2 wins and a loss. And then a cast of thousands, including us, Freo, North, Port, Adelaide, Collingwood, and also St Kilda on 1 win, with Melbourne and West Coast and the Giants and Geelong and Carlton. Brisbane, Richmond and Essendon, the only 3 teams without a win so far. And without going into it, the Bombers look bloody shit, don't they?
Fucking terrible, mate. Really bad.
How long do we give young Bradley?
I know it's hard to play away from home, but you look at West Coast and North's game. That was 2 teams who were on the bottom of the ladder that were playing with actual spirit and energy.
Yeah,
but they were listless. The Bombers. I knew Port were going to smack them, but listless. Yes, but
Just brought out the big
I knew
guns
Port were
early
going
on.
to. I knew Port were going to have a big win, but that was just the way they went about it. Essendon, like they were just really off.
Yeah, no, they don't
Which
look
is
like it.
this time of year, and they're pretty young too, so I think they're only going to get worse.
Yeah, they don't look like it. All right, well, we won't get bogged down in that because obviously that's Macca's domain, and if we do him out of a job, he won't be happy. So we'll move on to the Crows game, and of course it was Adelaide 13-10-88, going down by a goal in the end to the Bulldogs 14-10-94. 6 points. Top disposals for Adelaide: Geordie Dawson with 25, Worrell with 25, Jones with 22. For the Bulldogs, Bontempelli got 30, Richards 29, and Liberatore 28. Goal scorers for Adelaide: Walker with 3, Rochelle with 2, and Thilthorpe with 2. For the Bullies, Fraser got 3, Norton got 3, and Oscar Baker got 3 as well. All right, let's start as we always do with just a general impression. And Brownie, I will start with you. You were at the game, as I'm sure you were probably too, big man. But Brownie, what were your overall impressions of what we put out on Friday night?
Well, I thought the first half we sort of just went back to our chip it around the outside of the ground. Didn't want to take any risks. It was clear that the Bulldogs were going to play a really fast running game with a hell of a lot of handball, and
Yep.
they just worked their ass off that first half. And just every time they were under pressure, they found another player coming past because they were just running in waves. We didn't appear to be working like anywhere near as hard. I thought it obviously turned around. There was a stage in the third quarter and a fair portion of the fourth quarter where we bit the bullet and started taking risks. And I thought a few players like Miller and Dawson especially were pretty pivotal in actually, going through the guts and hitting a target, taking a bit of a risk, changing, swapping across the other side of the oval. I thought we only did it in patches, and it was just a bit disappointing once we got the lead. I think we should have just kept going. We seemed to get get level and get one goal up, and then we were sort of trying to defend rather than just open the floodgates and get a win by 3 or 4 goals. And that's the crowd was up, the crowd was behind them. It would have been a perfect opportunity really just to run the gauntlet, and if you lose, you lose. But, as it turned out, I thought we were just playing catch up that last couple of minutes because we had to score again, and, we left it too late.
Well, big man, I don't know whether you or Brownie were aware, but in those last couple of minutes, we had our first string midfield sitting on the bench. We had Dawson, Berry, and Cook sitting on the bench with 2 minutes to go. We also took Rankin off after he kicked that goal, and we took Rochelle off after he kicked that goal. And
Yeah,
I actually couldn't believe it.
I saw Rankin get taken off probably from the 4.5 minutes to 2.5 minutes or something, and I thought, what the hell is the point? He's not cooked. Just bloody leave him there, and hopefully he jags another opportunist goal.
Big man, what are your thoughts, mate?
Yeah, about the rotations at the end.
Or in general and that?
Yeah, I hate how rotations work sometimes. I hate when the player's hot. Like Rankin was, he had a bit of a dog of a night, but that last 5 minutes or 10 minutes on the game, he just did a couple of special things. Obviously that goal, but some other things as well. You could see Tex go up to him and try to psych him up after he had that fumble. We still kicked the goal, but he had a fumble when he got up from Rochelle, and you could tell he was just off his game. But then he clicked. And then to take him off after that, just so dumb. But whatever. I think Brownie surmised it pretty well in terms of how the game played out. I think we all talked ad nauseum about that game style on Friday night, and it was just a continuation of what we saw against Collingwood. It was just crazy that we went back to the well there. And look, credit to Bulldogs. They defended the ground really well. It was only later in the game when obviously they fatigued that more spots opened up throughout the ground to play faster footy. But something's not quite right there. We're not finding avenues to push the ball forward. And it's forcing our players to really go conservative sideways and backwards, and we don't have enough risk takers in defence to sort of hit the kicks you need to hit, particularly through the corridor. And they're not even looking through the corridor because guys like Laird, Butts, and etc. just don't have the kicking ability to do it. So we've got a bit of a problem there. We need to shift things up a little bit as quickly as possible starting this week. We need some more run and dare, some riskier kicks. Who cares if we turn it over? We've got a pretty good back six. Let's just get the ball moving quicker, because right now it's stodgy and it's not working, boss.
Well, I don't think I'm putting Friday night squarely on the coaching panel, because they weren't looking into the corridor for a reason, because they weren't instructed to look into the corridor, in my opinion. When we switch slowly. We weren't looking to run through them. And look, I'm not a big Beveridge fan, but I thought he coached particularly well. He set them up really well. They had a grid of players that were cutting off those little 45s and forcing us to go down the line, and we weren't creative at all in trying to get around that grid. They were playing, it was almost a Wiggles web kind of situation. And I think it's probably well known that the Crows aren't great under pressure. We do tend to panic a little bit under pressure. And the two things that stood out to me in the first half was A, that particular setup of Beverages and our inability to combat it, and B, the ability of the Western Bulldogs to be so clean in tight and get the ball to the outside so quickly, and they were all running forward. So as soon as they got a ball to the outside, they were all like, they had two, three handballs, and we were completely out of position. But to my way of thinking, you can't play like you did in the one quarter against Collingwood and in the one quarter against the Western Bulldogs and outscore your opposition convincingly, and then not do that in the other three quarters without it being coaching instruction, as far as I'm concerned, Brownie.
The funny thing I noticed I think it was in the presser when they interviewed Nix, and they asked him what went wrong. He said, "Oh, we just didn't move the ball quickly enough," but he didn't say that was an instruction. He said, "Oh, for whatever reason we didn't move it quickly enough," as if he's basically putting it back on the players. Now, surely they're playing the game plan they're instructed to play. There was clearly no. If you look at the comparison between the Bulldogs and the Crows, there was clearly no directive to look at opportunities to play on, because we weren't even looking to play on it. As a result, we
No, we
didn't have
weren't.
players running past. It
Yep.
was just stagnant. And then, and what you said about we don't have the players really to go through, chip it to that next player, and then we can cut back into the corridor. But we weren't even trying anything. But just the fact that we just didn't have players running past and giving options, I thought we looked a bit lazy and a bit flat-footed in the first half.
Large male.
Yeah, I think it's a multitude of things. I mean, obviously the ball movement, I think you can definitely stack that up to coaching. Our players, the way they're taught, the way they're drilled, they really struggled to find their way through the Bulldogs system, and it just forced us into our shells and just playing, as I said, stodgy football. On the players' side of things, though, I definitely thought we were a bit off with our physicality. Our tackling was definitely the worst I've seen in a while.
Yep.
Which was a bit concerning. They broke a lot of tackles, and if you look at the tackle count, it was astronomically different. And we've been a really consistently good tackling team over the last couple of years, so that was a surprise. That probably shows that we definitely didn't turn up with the same intensity they did. And sometimes you just got to give credit to the other team. Like we played a Bulldogs team that's up and about. They're in really good form. You don't want to play them right now, and they're just so slick with their front and centre work and their ground ball. They're just so good at getting to the right spots and then dishing off by hand. So we were made to look pretty average, and yet we still nearly won the game and should have won the game in the end, given where we were positioned. It's a weird one. We sort of let one slip, but it would have been a steal if we actually won it. In the end, you sort of think to yourself, well, we didn't deserve to win, but we're in a position to win, and we cocked it up. So it's a weird one to sort of dissect in that sense.
Yeah, now my little stats panel hasn't updated the round, so I will just read off some stats. Teams head to head. Disposals 363 to 367, so pretty even there. We had 50 more kicks than the Bulldogs, and they had 53 more handballs than us. So that tells you the difference between the two game styles. We weren't prepared to run at their zone, and they were certainly prepared to run at ours. Marks inside 50, 52 to 58, and that to me, 50, inside 50 is 52 to 58. And that, to me, sums up the problem that we've got with this slow ball movement, Brownie. We've got, I think, probably the most potent forward line in the competition, certainly in the top three. But we're so cute about trying to get it in there that we're not actually taking advantage of it. Like if Damien Hardwick had our side, he wouldn't give a rat's ass how we were getting it into the forward line. He just wanted in there as often as possible to take advantage of the three tools and two of the most dynamic, well, probably three if you count Pedler, because he does some good things as well. You got Pedler, Rash, and Rankin up forward with Tex, Fogg, and Thilthorpe. I mean, why wouldn't you want to give them as much service as possible?
Yeah, I'm with you there. Doesn't make sense. I think we've got the best forward line in the comp, to be honest. I think still than well, don't you want to get it in there? And when we do get it in quick, we generally have a shot on goal. Our conversion when we get the ball in quick is so much better,
Yeah.
and we're just not making the most of our advantage. And the frustration is that we're doing it in parts of games, but for some reason they don't want to do it. We should be doing it 75% of our games. The only time we should be shutting down is if the other team get 3 or 4 goal roll, and we want to just try and stem the flow a bit. You might get a bit defensive, but when it's working, we seem to stop, and I don't know what the rationale for that is. It just doesn't seem to make any sense.
Yeah, there was a stat, big man, that astounded me. The Bulldogs' every Bulldogs goal in the first half was off forward half turnovers. So that setup that Beveridge had, with trying to compress the space and compress the ground and force us to kick long, just meant that they were able to get the ball back off us in dangerous positions. We were always out of position. And 7 first half goals, all from turnover.
Yeah, that's what gives me the shits a bit too. Like we play this slow conservative ball movement, but that should allow you to at least protect your goals, and yet we somehow managed to still have them get players free over the top and look dangerous on the counter attack. So it's like, well, what's the point of playing slow if you're still going to give up easy goals?
Well, this is right. Yeah.
So that's a weird one. And on the flip side, if you look at the marks, you mentioned like we basically had double their marks, but we only had one more mark inside 50 than they did.
Correct.
Which is such an indication of that. Our ball movement going inside 50 was really poor until the last quarter.
Yep.
There's a lot of long bombs to packs, playing to their hands. They haven't got a great defense, but we made it look good on Friday night, and that was really disappointing. We got guys, and obviously Thilthorpe's a great contested mark, we know that, but that's not Tex's go. That's definitely not Fogarty's go, and yet we're sort of not playing that quick, transition style that allows you to get space inside forward 50. They just kept able to flood numbers back because why wouldn't they? They can just sit back and watch us chip it around for 2 minutes. So,
well, I actually don't know what he's trying to achieve. I don't know. I think he's so risk averse that he thinks that playing a chippy game style in order to keep the ball off the opposition is going to win us games. And surely he would have learnt from the 2 finals last year that that's just not going to do the trick. You cannot allow the opposition just to move back and get into formation and clog up space and not run at them. You just can't you can't expect. I don't know what his expectations are with this kind of game plan.
Yeah,
I
you're
think that the
right. I
idea
mean,
was. Sorry, you go, Brandon.
I was just going to say the way that we play, the odds are if you just keep doing that, you're going to fail 7 times out of 10, and that's not going to win your football game. So I'm with you completely. It just doesn't seem to stack up.
I mean, if it was to restrict the opposition, that's great, but they nearly kicked 100 points, so didn't
That's
work.
right. Well, they kicked 12 goals 8 from turnover out of 14-10. 12 goals 8 from getting the ball back off us. So that's not. I mean, we got killed in contested ball, we got killed in ground ball, but where they got their scores was getting the ball back from us.
Which shouldn't happen if you're not taking risky kicks inside the corridor.
Exactly. Which means that it's a pointless exercise to play this chip around crap. And every time we play it, because what happens, I reckon Matthew Nix likes a 10 goal versus 8 goal victory, right? But when you're playing that Dow defensive, keep you off sort of style, what it does is you're always keeping your opposition in it. You know, you're never going to get a big lead because you're not playing fast enough to score quickly enough to actually get that lead. So what ends up happening, even if you're playing well and you're in front, the opposition's always only 2 goals behind. And it just puts pressure on you because you know momentum's always going to swing eventually. And it just puts pressure on the team. And the alternative, when we get behind, all of a sudden we've got to switch gears. And you can do that. And Brownie, you said, that it was disappointing that we didn't kick on. We were bloody gassed by the end of it because we spent so many tickets coming back. I think at one point we were 21 points down, or could have even been more. And the Bullies were killing us at the contest. It took everything for us to get back, and you just can't sustain that sort of effort. Like when you're behind, it's far more taxing to peg back a score, in my opinion, mentally, than if you're front runners. Brownie.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the other frustration is we only tend to pull the trigger when we're 3 or 4 goals behind. And like you said, if that's the case, if you're spending more energy trying to come back from an 18-point, I think we're 24 points behind at one stage in the last quarter. You're right. We just worked so hard to get there. Then we got a goal in front. So 5 goals on the trot. I still thought that looked like we changed, but we didn't attack as much that last 6 or 7 minutes. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, we definitely did look. A few of our players did look gassed. That's for sure.
And, that's a worry, big man, because none of our midfielders had the same amount of time on ground as the Bulldogs midfielders. Most of the Bulldogs midfielders were over 80% time on ground. Ours were sort of mid to low 70s, with a couple like Peatling and Berry, I think, were under 70 or just over 70% time on ground. So we're clearly underdone. We're playing players that haven't got fresh legs. The Bulldogs made us look slow. They also made us look, surprisingly, in my opinion, they made us look weak. They were able to brush tackles continually, which is so frustrating. And they just looked like they were on top of the ground. And we always just seemed to be a step behind. I was watching a little bit again this evening in the first half, and we were, you have those games where the opposition have the ball and you're just 2 steps too late, and 2 steps too late on the next posse, and 2 steps too late on the next posse. And that just seemed to be how it looked all night, that we were just a step or two too late, too far off our player, big man.
Yeah, which is usually an indication you're not quite switched on enough or you're not working hard enough. It's funny, though, because actually for all the 14 teams that played this week, we covered the most distance. Which I think is interesting. We're the only team to clock over 300 kilometres. So I think
But what does that
really
tell you?
Team. Well, I don't know. We were all running to the wrong spots, or
a bit of that. But
The old
it's
Ned
not enough.
McHenry 15Ks where it doesn't you get 6 touches. I don't know. Like it's
But what it says to me is that there's a lot of inefficient running going on.
Yeah. A lot of
Like you say,
chasing
running
too. Turn the
to
ball
wrong
over.
spots. You know, all this running to the back half to bloody kick it sideways for 20 minutes. Like, there seems to me to be a lot of inefficient running and not a lot of aggressive, proactive running going on.
Yeah, that's true. I also want to mention, like, in the sense that the 6 point margin flatters us, which sounds funny because we're actually up, only a few minutes to go. But our backs, our key backs, and we'll talk about them shortly, I'm sure, they did a mountain of work repelling their forward entries. That the way in which the ball was coming in, that they left a fair few goals on the table there, the Bulldogs, and a lot of that was down to our two key backs just playing out of their skins, particularly Jordan Butts. So I think in some ways we were flattered a bit by the scoreboard.
Oh, I think we were too, no doubt about it. Running through a few more stats around stoppage, I thought Lockie McAndrew did reasonably well against English. I thought, considering he didn't really have a chop out, he did very well, 45 hit outs each. Clearances was 7 down overall. We lost centre 14 to 15. Around stoppage, we were 6 down, and I felt even that number flattered us a bit. I thought we got belted around stoppage. In terms of possession, they outdid us by 12, 131 to 143. Uncontested possession, and here's another weird stat. We kicked the ball, 40 more times, but we only had 8 more uncontested possessions, which shows you that even when we were doing that chippy stuff, half the time we were kicking the contest.
Yep. It's the easy way out. That's the thing. And we've seen in the past, Boss, like when we take those kicks inside the corridor and sometimes, yes, sometimes you'll cough the ball up, but we'll cough the ball up anyway. I think we play our best footy when we hit that important, that one kick inside the corridor. And whether it's a personnel problem or, as we talked about, the coaching, there's just a real resistance to times. We're not even looking in the corridor. And it's really given me the shits because, fair enough. Okay, you don't want to cough the ball up, but we're doing that anyway by kicking the contest against a team that's an incredibly good ground ball and contested ball team. And they're just mopping up and then bringing it back the other way, and we're caught on the back foot again. So, yeah, it was just a bit of a mess in terms of what we're trying to do. I really hope we address it quickly. There's not being silly with the ball, but there's also playing like absolute crabs, and I think right now we're playing like crabs.
Well, Brownie, another telling stat, in my opinion, are the possession stats. We had possession 43% of the time to the Bulldogs 37%. In the last quarter, we had 42% of the ball to their 32%. And in the last 10 minutes, we had the ball 26% to their 21%. Now, that just tells me that the Bulldogs were quite happy to sit back and let us fart ass around and then pounce and force a turnover and just get us back going the other way.
Yeah, they did. And I think we also made, even in that last 5 minutes, we made a lot of skill errors when we were trying to move the ball on. I thought we were pretty fumbly all night, to be honest. It wasn't just Rankin. There were a few others that Rochelle had a pretty fumbly sort of start.
And he's not hitting targets,
yeah.
Rash.
No, definitely not. He's not clean. It was pretty clean towards the end of last year. He really got his disposal under control and he was hitting targets, but I think I don't know whether he's just panicking a bit. But when you got Rochelle and Rankin both basically pretty fumbly for most of the game, it certainly doesn't help. And a few others were in the same boat as well.
Yeah. As you mentioned before, big man, marks heavily skewed in our favour, 119 to 61, but marks inside 50 only 8 to 7, and marks contested marks 8 to 5. I'm just seeing a theme here of wasted energy, in my opinion. Gary Lyon was having a heart attack in the first quarter. I think we might have had 40 uncontested marks in the first quarter or something ridiculous.
Yeah, and yet we weren't in front. So,
yeah,
great if you're trying to, protect the lead or you want to calm the play down. But we weren't kicking goals. We were struggling to hit the scoreboard.
Mm.
It was mind-numbing. And I suppose the only positive is that we're doing it now and not later in the year like we did last year. So there's plenty of time to course correct. But, like I mentioned this, we've been training like this in pre-season. It's definitely been exacerbated. There's definitely been one thing that's been different in pre-season is that we were still willing to run and gun a bit, particularly after at the halfway point of the ground. But teams aren't letting us even get to that point at the moment. It's just a lot of ball movement in your back half, and that's about it.
I'd be very interested, big man, in your insight into that match sim, because the one thing that started happening again, and you have a look at the difference when we're running and when we're not running, of where the point of entry into forward 50 is. And I know this is a hobby horse, and people are probably sick of me talking about it. But yet again, when we are stodgy with our ball movement, we pull the trigger to go inside 50 from far too far out, and we're only hitting the 50-metre line or at best 45. Whereas when we're running the ball and cutting through lines, we're getting entries from 60, 65 metres out, and we're able to hit up targets. One of the beauties of last week's game when we got going was the space in front of the forwards who were playing deep, and we're hitting up targets from 65 metres out. Now, I lost count of the amount of forward 50 entries, and I didn't have time, unfortunately, to plot it, much to everyone's happiness, probably. But the amount of times that we kicked the ball high into the forward 50 from like almost level with the bloody centre circle, it's just not effective. And not only that, we had no ground coverage. So often Thilthorpe or someone would be going up 2-on-1, and we had no crummers. We had no AMB, we had no Rash, we had no Rankin. They weren't at the feet, probably because they were all over the place with this stupid ball movement stuff.
Yeah, and I think if you're going to move the ball slowly, you'd think that you at least have numbers at the, in the side with your forward 50 entries. There are going to be at least a few guys there, but it seemed like we're getting outnumbered quite a bit. We let Buku Kamas have a really good game. And look, he's not a terrible player by any means, but we made him look like a superstar. The forward entries were pretty garbage. And, that last quarter, some of them were really nice. But, like, that one, where Sligo went to from Dawson, like, that was one of the very, very few lead-up hits we actually did all night.
Yeah.
Like, we were hitting those all the time last year, particularly in the first half of the year. So something's gone terribly wrong there, whether it's teams have figured us out a bit or whether we've gone way too far, like, in terms of course correction. Once again, this does have a bit of that 2024 vibe about it. Something's not quite right there, for sure.
Well, I don't know about that, mate, because to me, we played like that for large periods of the season last year.
Not in the first half of the year, though.
Well, no, but certainly when the whips were cracking.
I think we started like really quick, but I think at that Geelong game, when we started really quick and we got ahead and then we gave up the lead, I reckon after that game we went back into our shell for quite a few weeks, and we were still getting away with games against teams that are inferior, but it's not going to win your games against the teams that you want to beat in the finals, and that's the problem, I think.
That's exactly right. It's not going to get you anywhere. And it certainly didn't get us anywhere against the Bulldogs, that's for sure.
Boss,
sorry, go on.
Sorry, one more thing. Just because like we're talking about game plan and stuff. Can Brownie, you were at the game too, yeah?
Yep.
Can you explain to me what the hell is going on with our defending of kick-ins? How many times we let Bailey Dale kick to the bloody flank with someone all by themselves, no one within 20 metres of them, to the far flank? It happened time after time after time. They got it out so easy. One kick and they were already running the ball, through the almost the halfway point of the ground. Like we basically gave them almost the entire back half of the grounds to themselves before we even tried to, pressure up. I couldn't believe how easy their exits were.
was almost like we'd resigned ourselves to giving them. There was always one player that was 20 meters free, but I thought also with that second kick in, a lot of our forwards that were pushing back weren't. They were 10. Like Archie probably 4 or 5 times was 15 meters from his player. As soon as they got possession, their player hightailed it to centre forward, and Archie couldn't keep up. He
Yeah,
might, yeah, I don't know whether he's a bit underdone or whatever, but he just didn't look like he was switched on. And we just didn't have any intensity in terms of controlling their movement out of our forward line. Whereas when it was us, they'd give us a 15-meter chip, and that was it. They were
yeah,
conscious that happy for us to have that 15-meter chip and happy for us to get up to basically the wing, and then we had nowhere to go after that. And
yeah.
eventually we just, like Rob said, we'd kick it into the 50 or 45 and it'd just come back. But because they were basically, as soon as they got the ball, they were playing on. They weren't. It was just instinctive, and they had 2 or 3 options. And as soon as you start running with handball and break the lines, the floodgates open and we couldn't control it. So we were lucky in that first half, we were lucky they didn't score 4 or 5 more goals. Their
Mm.
ball use going forward probably wasn't as elite as it could have been. And we got away with it. But yeah, it could have been ugly the way that I thought we just weren't switched on defensively.
I agree. And like when I saw it earlier in the game, I was like, "Well, that's a neat set play they got going there. We've been caught out here, but we didn't rectify it in the rest of the game. We never sort of cottoned onto it and tried to adjust. We just kept letting them do it. It was just, yeah, it drove me insane watching that.
And I think too, you're underselling the efforts of our defenders as well, particularly our tools. I thought Butts, Worrell, and Michael Andy did a pretty good job, and even our smaller defenders did okay defensively. And I think without those lads putting in a big game, Darcy didn't have a huge influence. Norton kicked 3, but one was run on the goal, and really he didn't look like a huge threat. So I thought our defence actually, under the circumstances, held up pretty well. The problem is that exiting the defensive half was where the problem started.
Yeah, and I
Yeah, I mean,
reckon even go on, big man. You're right.
No, I was going to say, I mean, I gave Butts and Murray their dues before. I mean, like I said, I think the reason the scoreboard flooded us was because those guys defended almost the undefendable, or indefendable, whichever way it is. There was some entries there. I was like, oh, we're cooked here, and yet Butts managed to get us. Murray got to spoil in, or Butts took a big contested mark, and yeah, it could have been much worse in terms of the Bulldogs goal tally, with just the way they were coming in compared to the way we were coming in.
Just finishing off the team stats, as you alluded to earlier, big man, 47 to 71 tackles just isn't good enough, and 9 tackles inside 50 to 20. The manner in which we allowed them to bounce out of our forward line, a lot of people will say, well, we didn't put on enough pressure, and I think there's probably an element of that, but I also think it's a product of how we enter forward 50. I just don't think we make it easy for ourselves. This little chippy crap just allows them to flood back, and our inability to keep the ball in forward and get second looks and get second entries, which was a feature of our game when we were going well last year. We were able to force turnover in our front half and have secondary inside 50s, which is often where we would score. That was just not evident. It wasn't anywhere on Friday night.
No, and that's an area where we've been really consistent for quite a few years now, where we've had that frontal pressure, we've had that ability to cut kicks off, we've had that ability to shut players down with our tackling, and that just went missing. There was quite a few moments, particularly in the first half, where I was like, wow, like that's unlike us, where players sort of got around us and shrugged tackles. I mean, I know Bont's a gun at that, and some others they've got too, but just seemed as a whole, we just didn't have that intent or the ability to restrict them like we normally do. So I mean, I like to chalk that down just to us having an off night in that regard, but that's got to be addressed too going forward, because particularly a team like the Bulldogs, we let them play the way they want to play, and it costs us quite a bit.
Brownie, you wanted to say something?
I just think the intensity, it sort of reminded me of, I only saw the first final last year, but the lack of intensity early reminded me a bit of that first final. We just didn't seem really switched on in that first half. And yeah, normally when we're switched on, our tackles tend to stick and we make it hard for the opposition, but they were just brushing our tackles. Um, I think we get a bit exposed when we're playing a team that is like, they're probably quicker than us over the ground, and when they're a handball team, I think we're a bit exposed. If it's a kicking team, we can sort of push back and we
Mm,
can defend, but
yeah,
when they move it quick by hand, I think we're really exposed.
we are. And when we're forced to move the ball by hand, and I think maybe, who knows, maybe this is an assessment by the coaching group that we're better by foot than by hand. When we're forced to run at a zone and cut through with handball, we aren't composed at all, in my opinion.
Yeah, we also
Just
seem to.
go on, mate.
I was just going to say, we seem to, when we're playing that chippy game on the outside, we don't tend to um, run the ball by hand at all. But when we go through the midfield, all of a sudden we seem to have options running past. It's like they've got an attacking mindset if we're going through the middle, but we
Mm.
don't have that mindset when we're running around the outside. I don't know why.
It's because they're compressed on one side of the ground, so they're hemmed in by the boundary on one side, so they've got less options. That's what I reckon. Amazingly,
Yeah,
too, the Bulldogs had 12 bounces for the game. We had 3. I mean, 12 is a high amount, unusual amount to see. It just shows you how much they got the ball on the outside, and really, in my opinion, that was it. Their ability to turn the ball over and score off rebound, together with their ability to monstrous on ground ball, turn the ball over, get it back in their favour, and then run ahead of the ball and get us all out of position, were the 2 reasons why we lost. And I'm incredibly disappointed, Brownie, that we've gone back to this game plan, because to me, it just doesn't work. It just, like, I don't want to harp on it much more, but like, to me, it's a road to nowhere.
yeah. That's why I couldn't understand when Matthew Nicks was asked about it. He actually said we went back to that slow game style. But when he said for whatever reason, that just didn't make any sense to me because he's the one dictating the game plan. So yeah, and I'm sure the players enjoy playing that fast, high scoring football a lot more than they do what they served up the first 2 quarters. So yeah, I don't understand it. As I said, I can understand you doing it for periods of a game, but that shouldn't be the main goal shouldn't be to play slow football and then play attacking football when you're behind and you're desperate. It seems we need to be more positive from the start.
Yep.
100%. Sorry, mate. Go on, big man.
No, I'm just agreeing with old mate Brownie there.
With old mate.
Summed it well.
With old mate. What the hell? Don't forget, if you are in the Discord chat, this is a fairly somber session so far, but if you are in the Discord chat and you are age verified and you can come on the stage, please feel free to do so. I must give a shout out to Radicus again on YouTube, who's donated $5 and said we still relied on text too much. It's a worry. I don't know whether we rely on text, but text has certainly been leading up and presenting particularly well, and we'll get into individuals shortly, but I think he's had a pretty good start to the season. I want to talk a little bit in a minute about Darcy Fogarty too, and the his leading patterns. He works very hard, Darcy, but I just noticed a couple of things on the weekend, and of course, Phil thought, we wish we had 2 or 3 of him. So thanks, Radicus, for that. Right.
Sorry, boss. One thing.
Mm.
I thought I'll chuck one positive in there.
Yeah.
I thought the new home jumper looks fucking great. I really do. I think this is the way going forward. I think that jumper looks so good with the navy cuffs. It just makes the colours pop. I reckon. I reckon that's the way to go. Did you notice Brownie? That good the jumper looked.
I'm not much of a fashion man, big man, to be honest. I just care if they win. I don't care if they're, like I said before, if they're wearing a Borat mankini, as long as they win.
Yeah, I must admit I couldn't give a rat's ass. The only graphics I like are the ones on the scoreboard.
I thought I'd just chuck a bit of positivity in there, but that's all right.
No, that's all right, mate. It's if you go ahead and buy your merch. All right, why don't we look at some individual stats, and I'll just see if I've been madly working away here trying to do some running repairs on the player stats. So we'll see if this now works. But I'll just remind people that are in Discord that it'd be really good if at the end of the round you've got until Tuesday at 6 to put in your best and fairest votes. All you got to do is put /vote in the chat and then follow your nose, and you get to see all the options there that you can choose, and just pick your 3, 2, 1. The more votes we get in, the better. So yeah, if you can remember to do that, that would be wonderful. Now let me just check to see whether this is working now. Brownie, in terms of individuals, I think it depends which way you look at it. I felt like, oh, that's working. Look at that. Sometimes I even shock myself. I felt like defensively, Butts in particular, and also Worrell did a particularly good job.
Yeah, I'd actually throw Murray in there as well. I mean, Murray had 16 possessions, so a little bit less, but still 10 marks, but I reckon 4 and cleared it, knocked it outside 50. And I thought Murray's use of the ball by foot was a bit better than Butt. Butt tends to, most of his kicks are either
Not his
a
go
little
though,
chip
really, is it?
or they're going straight up. It's not really his go. Whereas Murray actually, like Murray can take more, he takes more risk with his kicks, but when he's on song, he's actually quite a good kick, and he can hit a sort of low trajectory 40-meter pass pretty well. And I thought he did pretty well. But all three of them, when you're getting 30 odd marks between your three key defenders, you've had a pretty good night in defence.
Yeah, that second goal would have been handy though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'm thinking anyone that had Jordan Butts in a same game multi for an anytime goal scorer would have been pretty happy. It would have been 50-1, I reckon.
Oh, and the rest
He kicked the
probably.
first. He kicked the first one too well. He absolutely slotted it. So
I
Kicked the
couldn't
second
believe
one
he
like
misses.
Riley O'Brien.
I mean, he had 19 touches, 14 kicks, 5 handballs. He kicked a goal. Obviously, he had a couple of contested marks, but also 11 intercepts. And I don't really think we can ask more of him, to be honest with you. Intercepting is not normally his go, but I felt like he really put a good step forward there.
yeah, I mean,
He
and the
seems to have
play
a
he was
bit
on.
more.
Like, sorry, but Brownie, I was just saying, like the player he was on. Like, yeah, those stats are great, but then consider who was actually defending as well. Like, I know Sam Darcy. He probably gets. He's a very good player that probably gets talked up a bit too much, especially compared to our bloke who's on the other end of the ground. But yeah, I think he's still a really dangerous player, that particularly with his height. And he just, I'll be honest, he made Darcy's bitch on the night. So yeah, I mean, as I said, I don't think he could have played much better than he did. That was probably he's played 87 games. That was the best, I reckon.
Yeah, he's growing in confidence because he's actually got he's got the confidence to actually run and jump at the ball, and he's really launching at it, and he's got bloody good hands. Like his one grab, he's not fumbly at all. I think now it's just going to be a matter of knowing when to go for the mark and go for the fist. But I'm glad that he's having the confidence to actually go for the mark. And some of those were, they weren't. He was there was a contest. They were contested marks and pretty decent. They weren't all 2 meters in front of his opponent.
Nick Murray, you mentioned as well. Brownie, 16 disposals, 13 kicks, 10 marks, 2 contested, 2 rebound 50s, and 7 intercepts. I thought between them, they really did a good job on Darcy and Norton, and certainly Darcy got a bit frustrated there at one stage and gave away 100 metres. Pity we couldn't finish it off, but I thought both of those lads kept us in the game in the first half, to be honest.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's had a pretty even four-quarter performance, really. But yeah, they in the first half, if it wasn't for those three, and like even Jones chipped in with a few marks, and I'm not sure about Miller. I haven't got his stats here, but I think he took a few as well. So the whole defensive unit did their job. Um, just a pity that they had to. It would have been nice if the ball was flowing, sort of heading our way a bit more in that first half.
Big man.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm loving about Muzz at the moment, we saw it last week and we saw it even more on Friday, is that he's just jumping at the footy again. He's obviously got a lot more trust in his knee and the way he lands, because we know that's how he did it in the first place. And he's had a couple of years where he sort of looked like he doesn't trust his body, but he looks so much more dynamic than he has, in recent years. So, yeah, like I think, obviously Butts was the best on ground, but I think Muzz for me was the second best. Which is probably a worry when your two best players are key defenders. You don't really want that, but just the way the game went for us, I think both of those guys could definitely hold their heads up high.
Yeah, well, I think it's an indicator of, how the ball was coming in and how we were playing the game, that those two boys figured prominently. And then you had Josh Worrell, who had 25 touches, 19 kicks, 9 marks, but surprisingly none contested, 7 rebound 50s and 5 intercepts. Again, probably at the moment, almost our chief distributor out of the back half, which probably isn't really his go, but he does all right with it. He didn't turn it over too much.
Agreed. Sorry, not much I could add to that one, boss.
No,
Well, shit, eh? Looking at the smaller defenders, Brownie, you mentioned Miller before, and it's amazing what a difference a week makes in terms of output. I thought Miller was held far more accountable this week, and as a consequence, had little real impact on the game.
what are his numbers?
Oh, jeez. Anything else you want to know? His
More
numbers
detail, 'cause I
were...
thought he did a few good things.
He had 19 disposals, 12 kicks, 5 contested possessions, 12 uncontested possessions, 4 rebounds, and 5 intercepts.
Yeah, they're not terrible numbers, are they? And I thought, again, like last week, I thought most of the stuff he did was really clean. And he
I'll
was
tell you
still,
the damning stat. I'll tell you the damning stat, Brownie, that makes me criticise
Meters
him.
gained?
178 metres gained.
yeah, that
Yep.
might have, yeah, that was a part of it was just the way that they'd set up, and also that was we were giving no options. The only options we were giving were 15-meter, 20-meter chips. So I think that was more a symptom of the actual game style we were playing rather than I think he would have been willing to take risks, but no one was giving like second, third options. It was only bloody one bloke had run into a hole, and that was about it. It was pretty stagnant.
I still didn't like his game terribly much. But you are right. You are right. There was no options. I just didn't feel like we were looking for options, even if they were there anyway. The other one now, Rory Laird being our other small defender, obviously had calf issues during the course of the game, and it was surprising that he came back on. He had 18 disposals, which is down for him, 9 kicks, 4 contested possessions, 13 uncontested, 1 rebound, 53 intercepts. But if you thought Wayne Miller didn't move the ball down the ground much, then Lairdy had 59 metres gained. 59 metres gained. Crazy.
Yeah, it's
Nick
not going to
Murray
get it
had
done.
more metres gained.
Well, Muzz actually takes it on sometimes, but we talked about how Lairdy's just lost his pace, and that's sort of been a decline over the years, but it's definitely a bit starker at the moment. Maybe it's linked to this calf, or the calf was just out of nowhere. I'm not sure. But they were talking, it was a soleus injury, which is a soleus. It's the basically the calf muscle in between your calf and your Achilles, which I've actually injured myself, and it's quite a nasty little one. So I wouldn't be shocked if he's rested up for this week. I don't think he'll make the trip after a 6-day break. So the problem is Boss, he's probably going to come back in, and when he does come back in, he's got to do something quickly about his game because it's not working for us at the moment. He's got to play better footy than he is right now.
Well, I don't know how you can select him, Brownie, at the moment. Hugh Bond obviously was laid out with tonsillitis by the sounds of it, so that's not a 2 or 3 day thing, so he might not even be available. But irrespective, I really, if you want to talk about selection integrity, then surely after a couple of games you'd have to be thinking very hard about Rory Laird's spot in the team.
Yeah, and that's what I'm hoping is if they do either rest him or he doesn't come up this week, but if they get a Charlie Edwards or a Nankervis or someone in there to fill his hole, hopefully they do the job and just keep him out because,
I don't think they have to
like
do
Big
that.
Man
They can
said,
just play in his position.
but if they can, like I'll let the one go through the keeper, mate. Like Big Man said, it'd be nice if he could pick his game up, but I just don't think he's got any more strings to his bow. I think
No.
he plays the way he plays. He's got less distance with his kick. He has trouble kicking over a man on the mark without kicking the ball bloody,
Yeah.
straight up in the air. And
Yeah.
he's never, ever, ever looks to move the ball on quickly. He just
No, it
stagnates.
just
So if
doesn't.
we can get someone else that plays a more attacking game and we can see the benefit of it, then surely we don't bring him back in
Mm,
just because he's a club stalwart. We've got to be better than that.
we do.
He's Jay Kelly the second at the moment, Brownie, which wasn't.
Yeah,
I
correct.
mean, he's never he's never been he's not been Nazar Wangan Miller in terms of the way he moves the ball, but right now he's playing like Jake Kelly, which is we remember how frustrated we got with him a few years ago, and
Yeah.
it's sort of history repeating itself at the moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right. Now, I just wanted to do a couple of minutes on our midfield, and I mean, we've all mentioned that they look far more dynamic than we did. I thought probably on balance, and I know he's a bit of a love child of mine, but I do think that on balance, probably Sam Berry was our most consistent midfielder over 4 quarters. By no means was he a standout, but I felt like he was our most consistent over 4 quarters. He had 22 touches. Hang on a minute, let me just fix it up. 22 touches, 17 kicks, 5 handballs, 8 tackles, 5 clearances, 13 contested possessions, 11 uncontested possessions. So he's certainly got a few clearances. In terms of his clearance work, he had 4 centre clearances and 1 around stoppage. So I don't know how you guys saw his game, but I thought, I think our midfield got beaten soundly, but I thought he was the best of a bad bunch.
Yeah, I thought Berry was pretty good considering. Yeah, it's probably only him and Dawson that could hold their hands up and say they put in a pretty consistent effort throughout the game. I just love the fact he tries to break lines and he carries the ball, and we just need more of that. And he does, like he hit up a target inside 50 on his left, running out of the guts.
His disposal
I
was
reckon
cleared
he's
right
got
up as far as I'm concerned.
yeah, yeah, I reckon he's got a lot of upside. I think maybe he's got to get to that point where his motor's good enough that he can really put in for a solid 4 quarters. But I thought that was a good effort. He took 4 marks. But the fact that he was one of the few that really tried to put on tackling pressure throughout the game. I thought a few of our other midfielders weren't that accountable when it came to tackling. So yeah, I thought he was pretty reasonable.
Well, I
That
wanted to just address Big Man, something maybe that you can talk about. I wanted to just address that motor / time on ground situation, because there were only 3 Bulldogs players that spent less time on the ground than Sam Berry. Sam Berry had 71% time on ground. Only Croft, Hines, and Bramble for the doggies had less than that. Their mids, spent, as I said, around the 80 to high 70s. There, Sanders had 80%. Bailey Williams had 82. Who else did we have there? What did I see?
88.
Bont 88. Yeah. So I mean, all of our midfielders were under them. Rochelle was our highest, actually, 84, but he spent a bit of time up forward. But, we had Dawson at 82. We had Cumming at 80 off a wing. Braden Cook, 78 off the other wing. Rank 74, probably understandable. Then Saligo, 72. Berry, 71. And Peatling, 65. When you've got your midfield rotation spending so much time off the ground and getting belted, what does that say about our fitness levels at the moment?
I can't explain the Sam Berry one because, as far as I've seen, he's been perfectly fine the last few weeks. So I'm not sure what's up with that one. The Peatling one makes a bit of sense because we know he was underdone going into round 1, and Saligo likewise. Saligo probably played a little bit more than I actually expected, to be honest, given he was in doubt for the game to start with.
Probably because of lead, I'd imagine.
Probably right, but even then, just the numbers they're a bit worrying. I mean, I think Peatling in particular, I think, had a really down game. Some of his kicks was great, but apart from that, he didn't have much influence in the game at all, and he's a bit of a worry at the moment. It's not enough for a guy who's playing full, pretty much midfield and that sort. Yeah. I mean, he was all right last week, but that was pretty ordinary on Friday, and you're right. The numbers are pretty stark. I mean, I think you're right. Talking individuals, though, I think Bez was probably our best clearance midfield. I think Dawson probably had the best night of the bunch overall. But that left foot kick out of the stoppage out of centre, you mentioned, Brownie. That was a thing of beauty, wasn't it? To Tex, that was so good. Yeah. But he's showing that he's accelerating more out of stoppage, and he's taking the game on a bit more. He's getting a bit more easy ball around the ground. Still would like to see him get a little bit more, but I mean, it's only early days. It's only been about 3 rounds or 2 rounds plus opening round, but he's averaging in the top 10 or so in the AFL for centre clearances. So he's actually doing his part. There's nothing wrong with his game at the moment. I think he's one of the few that you could actually say has improves year on year so far. He looks like a player that's playing with a lot more confidence. His ball handling in particular is, we were a bit fumbly. Rochelle was really fumbly. Rankin was really fumbly, but Berry was definitely one of the cleanest players we had in the night.
Agreed. Peatling, only 2 clearances for the night. 4 contested possessions surprises me, and 6 uncontested possessions. I know he's been struggling a little bit. Well, he had an interrupted pre-season as well. But there's no point playing blokes if they can't play 70+% game time, and it's a bit of a worry. Geordie Dawson probably also had his colours lowered, I thought, by Bontempelli, who he seemed to be running with for a good amount of the time. He had 25 touches, 7 tackles, 8 clearances, 7 contested and 11 uncontested possessions. But he never really looked damaging as far as I was concerned. I don't know. It's a big spend, in my opinion, to have someone of Dawson's quality shutting down an opposition player. I don't mind if they go head-to-head, but Dawson's not that tight.
I actually think Dawson was all right, to be honest. I know Bond had a really good last 10 minutes where he really took over the game. But apart from that, I'm not so sure. They both, if you look at the stats, I mean, stats are stats, they're not everything. But Dawson had an extra clearance, one less score involvement, not too dissimilar meters gained. They both kicked a goal. I wouldn't look at that and think, oh, geez, Dawson got smacked. I think it was just other players around Bont that played better than our fringe players, like Oscar Baker and some other Duke Kamas I mentioned before, and others. I'm not saying I've seen Dawson play better, and particularly in the corresponding game last year at Marvel, where he had a huge game. But yeah, I wouldn't say. Would you say he got his colours lowered? I'd say he got slightly beaten, but I actually think he's still one of our better players for the night. Where do you sit on it, Brownie?
I actually would have to agree with you, big man. I thought like Bont only had 5 more possessions, and they pretty much had a similar impact. The only difference is probably Bont had a bit more run and carry. I'm not sure what meters game were between the two of them, but Bont seemed to be breaking the lines a bit more. But I thought, similar to you, I thought it was the second and third midfielders that really had a massive a massive win over our others. It's probably only Dawson and Berry that could hold their heads up. The rest of them were pretty average on the night, and I think
Yeah.
that's where we lost it.
Well, you talked about meters game, Brownie, and this really is a tale of the tape as far as effective midfield. Ed Richards 571, Tom Liberatore, he's a little turtle, 535. Bontempelli 491, Bailey Williams 484, Joel Frazier 473. They're the top 5 metres gained on the ground. And then you've got to go down to Sam Berry at 432. Jordan Dawson had 376. Peatling had 316. Rochelle only 300. Braden Cook only 265. So, I mean, therein lies the issue with the midfield and how much they got destroyed on the weekend. That the top 5 metres gained players on the ground were essentially the Bulldogs midfield.
Yep, I think you're right. I think that's at the end of the day, that's probably a big part of the difference with the result. And with the players that we've got, is that going to change a great deal?
Look, I think I don't know. It's an interesting question because I would love to be able to have a look at the running patterns of our midfield and to actually see the areas that they're running to, because I see a lot of opposition teams use their midfield to carry the ball through transition, and yet I don't see that a lot from us. I see a lot of hitting up from Tex and Fogarty on transition and then maybe an overlap. But I don't see the same dynamic running from our midfield as I do from a lot of other teams. And I must, like, it'd be interesting if we went back and had a look at the game just to try and spot where these blokes are putting themselves at times, because I feel at times they put themselves into positions where they're not going to be used. And Big Man, you mentioned that, we ran more than anyone else, but it's clear from those statistics, for all that running, we got nothing out of it. So,
yeah,
like, there's got to be an issue there in terms of running patterns, in my opinion.
I think that's a pretty fair summary. I mean, I noticed that a few times, actually. There's one instance where, and that might be just bad decision making on our part, but there's one where Chase Jones had the ball coming out of half back and he was sort of running with it, and there was a clear guy running into space on the wing. I think it might have been Cook even. And he just bypassed him and went long instead. And I don't know if that was intentional. That's what Jones has been told, or what, if he was supposed to give it to Cook or not. But yeah, it just seemed like there is a fair bit of wasted running there. I don't think we're rewarding the right players at the right times with some of that ball movement. I think I mean, you're right. Those numbers, those meters gained numbers aren't pretty. I think there is also the fact that we just, unfortunately, we talked about this leading to the season that we have too many guys that are underdone in the midfield. And whilst it's good to have those guys back in the team, doesn't mean they're the players that, at their optimal level. Peatling, was an example of that. He looked a bit gassed. Saligo is an interesting one because I actually thought he was actually pretty better around the ball than he was against Collingwood. I thought he looked a bit more sharp with his movements and his body strength, but he obviously can't cover the ground at the moment. So that's two midfielders right there who are down in terms of their running power. That makes a big difference. And one guy that we're hoping is, with Sid Draper that eventually come to the team. He's someone that is a meters game player when he does take the game on. Curtin's obviously someone who has that ability too. I know we can't just say, but we're missing these guys, because at the end of the day, we've still got enough players out there to perform. But it does feel like it's a mix. It's probably a combination of the mix we have at the moment, but also the guys out and the guys who are in are underdone, where it's just like we're just a bit flat-footed and stodgy and just lack that dynamicism. Like even Saligo in the first half of last year, he was really dynamic. He was getting 30 touches a game. He was carrying the ball, getting 1-2s and all that cutting through the midfield. And he's not even the quickest bloke going around, but he was looking sharp and dynamic. And we just don't really have that at the moment with the majority of our midfield play. I think Berry's probably the only one who's really actually showing some intent to move the ball quickly and take the game on.
Yeah, I've just got up on screen, Brownie, to confirm your point, really, and I'll happily eat humble pie on this. So, the comparison between Bonts and Dawson, you're right, Bont got 5 more touches, but, same amount of goals, pretty much same amount of tackles, pretty much same amount of marks, it's a very even stat line, to be honest. So, I don't know, maybe I'm expecting more from Dawson. I just don't feel like he's as damaging now as he was when he first came to the club. I feel like he's been asked to do a hell of a lot.
Well, he's also playing a different role now, isn't he? He's probably going to be more damaging and get bigger possession numbers running off a halfback flank or a wing than he is playing predominantly midfield. So I think, he still has the occasional game where he knocks up 30, but I don't think he's the kind is he a natural midfielder? I don't really know if he's a natural midfielder.
I don't think he is.
So he's probably not gonna knock up 30 every week, but I think at the moment we don't have a choice. If we can get 25 quality possessions out of him every week, that's going to be better than nothing, because I reckon we're 4 or 5 weeks away till some of our second tier midfielders have actually got enough running their legs to run out at like the Peatlings, and Saligo's going to be like he had a pretty big setback, so he's going to be 4 or 5 weeks till he's really got that running power again. So I think that's going to be how we manage that going forward for the next 3 or 4 weeks is going to be really important.
Agreed. Just looking at Rash, 18 touches, 2 goals, 4 tackles, 2 marks, 1 inside 50. 1 mark inside 50, 2 inside 50s, 1 centre clearance, 2 stoppage clearances. Big man, have you been able to see a centre bounce attendance number for Rash?
Yep, I can get it up. Just give me 1 sec. I think it was 11 out of the. I don't know what the percentage was, but give me 1 second.
11 out of.
Just got it now.
We have 27 goals, so 27 attendances. 11. That's probably about what? Just. But
you got also you got the one at the start of each quarter as well.
Okay.
So I mean, if you look at the bananas, it was Dawson, Berry, Saligo, and then Rochelle. So basically 4th most.
Yeah. So probably, I would say,
I'm guessing 30%, 30-ish%, I'd say.
Yeah, I would say not a bad game from Josh. He had 9 clangers though, and I think that's probably the issue with Rash at the moment is just his ball security. I think players with natural ability, Brownie, and I saw that in the way that you used to play, because you're so confident in your ability. Sometimes you're a little bit relaxed in terms of your disposal, and I think Rash plays a bit like that. And I reckon You noted in the back half of last year how his disposal really picked up, and I felt like he started to concentrate a little bit more and be a bit more considered with his disposal. But when he just plays on natural ability, I feel like that's when he turns it over a lot.
Yeah, and I think the difference was last year he was basically playing to get his reputation back, so he was just focused, and maybe now he's part of the midfield rotation. He's not got any real pressure on him in terms of retaining a spot in the team. He's maybe just relaxed a bit, but I think we need like you can't have that kind of performance every week from one of your midfielders. He's got to use it better, especially by foot. If we're a kicking team, he's got to he can't be turning it over 6, 7 times a game. It's just too costly, especially against a team that just like runs and guns as soon as they get it. It's just it's not good. And I thought, he was probably of the midfielders, he was probably the worst. Um,
Yeah.
Also thought like defensively, I thought Chase Jones was pretty loose with his disposal as well.
Yeah, true. I just got to chip in. Kenny Loggins on YouTube has given us a super chat. Thanks again for your support, mate. But he said, "This is why we need Macca badly on a Sunday night. I need my unhinged Knicks rant and Sunday dinner update." Well, mate, you only have to wait a couple more days and you'll get it on Tuesday night, because I'm sure Macca is locked and loaded for his Knicks rant on Tuesday night. So tune in on Tuesday night and you'll get your fill of that. You mentioned Chase Jones, Brownie. I am very interested in your thoughts on that actual selection, without putting my two Bobsworth in first up.
I yeah, I gather like I would have thought they would have played. I know you said Nate's probably not a like for like, and I thought maybe like that would have been the
Oh,
Chase has had that reputation as being able to play that lockdown sort of defender, that they
Mm.
went with him. Um, but and whilst he is quite good that way, and he took a few marks, as I think he took 6 marks as well. But I um I just I think he's a little bit average in terms of disposal, and I think when you've got lead in the back half, you don't need two guys that are going to miss targets. So I was a bit shocked.
Well, he only had 3 clangers, 22 disposals, 2 tackles, 6 marks, 10 contested and 11 uncontested possessions, rebound 50s 3. Big man, I think the thing that I didn't like about his game, but what we probably shouldn't be surprised about in terms of his game, is just the fact that he's completely vanilla. You're never going to get anything dynamic from Chase. He's just a link in the chain kind of bloke.
yeah, because his inside game is it's just pretty ordinary. He doesn't have a fend or a swivel of the hips. He
Correct.
gets tackled, he stays tackled. So when he's in traffic, he's basically a liability.
Mm.
He's fine pretty much everywhere else. I know sometimes he overthinks things or he makes some strange decisions, but overall, I mean, he didn't have a terrible game. It was far worse than Chase Jones.
Yeah.
But I just thought the way we want to play and the way we're hoping personally that we play, I think Dan Curvis would have been a much better replacement, because he is one that takes the game on and has pace and has some dare. But he wasn't even an emergency, so unless we wanted to cop a fine, we had to play Chase instead, which means obviously they would have preferred Chase anyway, which just don't get the logic in that, replacing an offender by putting Chase there. You know, he's playing primarily as a wingman anyway. It just seemed like a missed opportunity. As soon as I heard Bomb was out, and I saw James was in, I was like, that should have been Nankervis. And look, I don't think it was a difference between us winning or losing, but going forward, I know which one I want on the team, and it's not Chase Jones, which is no slight to Chase, and chances are he might even retain his spot in the team this week. But I just think that we can do better.
I must admit, at the start of the game, I thought, well, would Nank have been the right fit to come in place of Bond? And look, to be honest with you, I don't think he would have been. But we may have got better out of him, if you know what I mean, than we got out of Chase Brownie.
I just like Big Man said, just a bit more creativity, the ability to sort of balk in traffic. He's a bit like Millerer. He can find space. Sometimes he tries too much and he gets caught, but I think when he's good, he's good. And I think he just needs games. And the problem is he's not getting games. So, I think, like you said last week, if he's not getting a regular game by halfway through the year, he's going to certainly be looking at his options. And I think he's got a bit of X factor. We need guys like that in our side if we're gonna push the pointy end of the year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just a last one on Jake Saligo. 12 touches from 70% time on ground just isn't enough from Jake. And I know he's probably underdone and all the rest of it. But if you're going to play him for 70% time on ground, he's got to get more than 12 touches. And, he had 4 stoppage clearances. I don't even know whether he attended a centre bounce, but he didn't get any centre clearances. 7 contested, 6 uncontested, scored a goal, of course. But Vardy Magic makes a really good comment in the chat. I don't know who his direct opponent was, and I don't actually know where he was playing. Did you guys pick that up, Brownie? Did you know where he was playing?
No, I'd have to throw the big man there.
It was just Jake Saligo.
Yeah.
As far as I could tell, it was a mix of forward and he had 10 centre bounces, so he was in the midfield at times. He had the same amount as Isaac Rankin. So
yeah, 10 centre
bounces,
there. No centre clearances. So not a good game from Jake at all. And if you're going to play him 70% on, go on.
No, I agree. And with a 6-day break, I think he'd be likely to maybe be one who does miss.
I don't think so, because we don't have many coming in.
Well, with the injuries we have, yeah, you're possibly right. But I just think I actually liked his. I know he didn't have the centre clearances like you mentioned, but I actually thought his contested work was better, and obviously that goal he kicked and some of the things he did were really nice. It's just obviously in terms of the volume, it wasn't there, and it's just like, well, what do you do now? Do you give him a rest and then hopefully he's by round 4 he's going to be match fit and we can trust him to play greater time on ground and more in the midfield, or do we try and just drive him through this week and see if he where do you sit? I know obviously we're not selections for your Tuesday Night Live, but would you persist with him, or do you give him the week off given it's such a short turnaround?
I don't think you can give him the week off because I don't think we've got the manpower at the moment to give him a week off. I think we're actually masking a severely underdone midfield at the moment. That's what I think's going on, because those time on ground numbers and the relative stats and the fact that we got absolutely burnt by Western Bulldogs just tells me that our mids at the moment, apart from probably Berry and Dawson, are severely lacking in miles in the legs and or carrying stuff. I don't think they're carrying stuff. I think they're just they suffered from the interrupted pre-season, Brownie.
Absolutely. I don't know how long. I would have thought it'd be 3 or 4 weeks before they're really going to be at their peak. And that's another reason you probably don't want to give Saligo a break, because I think he probably just needs to have a little bit more an increase in his time on the field every week. But when you got Peatling and Saligo getting 24 possessions between them, it does make it pretty hard to be competitive in the midfield. That's for sure.
Yeah. Isaac Rankin, I don't think we could have expected too much from him, but 16 touches and a goal, 3 tackles, 2 marks, but no clearances to speak of. It was rusty, and he's another one who's had an interrupted pre-season and obviously missed our first game through suspension. He'll be better for the run, but, again, we missed him... his dynamic sort of work in the midfield and around stoppage.
Yeah, he just looked just a bit rusty, very rusty. Actually, let's be honest. He had a lot of fumbles that he normally wouldn't have, and that's unfortunate. You know, as good as he is, and he did some special things, particularly late in the game. But yeah, that's what happens when you miss a lot of football. He hasn't had any trial games or anything. I know he's had a couple of internals, but in terms of actual genuine AFL opposition, he hasn't played a game since September or August last year. It's a long time, so he'll be better for the run. Hopefully, he pulls up okay after the first game, and I mean, I reckon that'll be one of the worst games he played for the year, which is pretty exciting because he still did a couple of pretty impressive things the other night.
Now, Brady, I want to talk to you about this next fella because what he does sensationally well, but we hardly ever see him, and that's Luke Pedlar. 7 disposals, no goals this week, although he had one disallowed that was a bit unfortunate. 1 tackle, 2 marks, 4 contested and 3 uncontested possessions. No marks inside 50, 2 inside 50s and 1 goal assist. I love Peds, and when he is in and around it like that burst through the tackle to feed off for a goal was fantastic. But we see it once a week, and I don't think we can carry a 7 possession player playing as a sort of a medium-sized forward. He's got to get more of it.
Yep, I was going to raise the same issue. It's and like you said, most of what he does, he's just really clean. And he looks great. He's got a beautiful kick. He can kick a goal from outside 50 on the run. He can take a mark. He's fit, like hard at the ball. But he's never going to be a 30 possession player, but he needs to be getting, 18 to 20
Yep.
like on average for us to justify keeping him. You just can't afford, like, if you look at our bottom probably 5 possession getters, they really didn't contribute much to the game, and you just can't have that many sort of guys that are just bloody not performing. I don't know whether it's the position that he's playing and or it's just the game. I don't know how many did he have last week? He had a few more last week, didn't he?
I
Wasn't much
can't
for him.
remember.
I
Wasn't
think he had
much
like
more.
12 or 13, but
He had a couple
but
of
he
goals
did
last
he
week.
did a bit. Yeah, he did a bit more with it. If he had a game like last week every week, you'd probably stick with him. But he's probably 10 possessions down on where he needs to be. If he's going to have a low possession game, he needs to at least be hitting the scoreboard a couple of times. But yeah, he's a watch at the moment. I don't think he's going to be at risk because, especially if Laird goes out, I don't think that we can afford to make too many changes. But yeah, I think going forward, when we get a few of our other players back, he's going to have to. If he's not performing, he's going to be probably one of the first ones to go on those numbers.
Yeah. Obviously, he's not getting to run through the middle big man to any great extent. He's a bit like Rash in terms of being able to get clearances, in my opinion. But the one thing that I noticed about Luke, or didn't notice about Luke, was the fact that he doesn't seem to get at the feet of the tools very often. And I think he tends to be a marking forward, and he can take it. One day he's going to take an absolute bloody mark of the year because he can get up, but we need him at the feet, and it was a real noticeable thing on Friday night that we didn't have crummers, and I feel like Luke's not getting himself into the right positions. Big man.
Yeah, and when he did get into decent spots, he just fumbled, or I don't know, did some things where I don't know. He just every so often you have these games where he just makes the easy look hard, and that was again the case. So it's a tough one because I don't think he didn't kick a goal, did he? I mean,
No,
he
not
did,
this
but
week.
he got over to he got over
not one that got counted.
Yeah. So, and his last quarter was actually quite good, but he was anonymous for the first 3 quarters. So, but with with Archie going down, I don't think his spot's in too much danger just yet. We don't have heaps of cavalry to come into those positions. But he'd want to lift his game a little bit. He's better than what he showed on Friday night for sure.
Well, I want to talk more about how he can contribute more than whether his spot's in danger, because again, he's another bloke where I don't actually understand the patterns that he's running. Is he supposed to be a lead-up forward? Is he supposed to be a crumbing forward? Is he a defensive forward? Like, how are we actually playing? Because to me, it's unclear about what his role is. And I would say the same about Ben Keys, to be honest, Brownie.
Yeah, well, Pedler plays like he's a lead-up forward, but like to your point, that's not really what we need. When you've got three tools, and especially if we're bombing the ball in like we were um, on the weekend.
Mm.
But he seems to want to like. I think he's trying to play so he can take marks and kick goals, but I think he needs to be more of a crumbing forward, but maybe that's not his guy. But as to your other point, I just don't know why you wouldn't be pushing him through the midfield 3 or 4 times at least once a quarter, because I think he's quite dynamic and he is a bit of a ball magnet. That mightn't be a bad thing just to get him into the game a bit, because you know what it's like when you're playing a half forward flank or a small forward and things aren't going your way. It's bloody hard to get onto the ball, and
Yeah.
sometimes you just got to find a way to get him into the game.
Yeah. I feel like, big man, there's a big opportunity for us just to triangulate Isaac, Rash, and Pedler. It feels like all of them can get a clearance, and none of them have got the tank to run a full game through the midfield. So why not just run the three of them, a third?
Well, he was one where I was hoping that maybe, the way the game was panning out, and particularly the way in which Pedler was having a really quiet night, that we would chuck him in there just to see if that could get him into the game, and we never really did it, did we? So I think that was a missed opportunity. It's funny. we heard that report, remember, earlier in the year where they said, Pedler's playing more midfield time? He hasn't had a single percent of bounce yet. So I said it was bullshit at the time, but actually I think he could have used a little bit of centre bounce time on Friday night.
I agree. Because what he does particularly well, and he's so hard at it, and he's such a hard unit, and it might have been nice to see him run through a couple of the Bulldogs blokes and just rough him up a bit and get involved, get him into the game, because it can be a graveyard like you said, Brownie, and you've got to get these blokes into the game. Why are you picking them? Like, why would you pick a bloke and then just like have him run around for 7 touches? If he's not getting the agate, you try and make use of him somewhere else, and I just don't feel like we're terribly adventurous in that regard. Benny Keys is another one. 15 touches, 0 goals, 2 tackles, 5 marks, 6 contested, 9 uncontested, 1 inside 50. What's his role at the moment? What's Ben Keys' role at the moment? I don't understand what Pedler and Keys' roles are at the moment, Brownie.
No, I couldn't work it out. I suppose watching it when you're at the ground, I didn't probably focus on him too much, but I did notice he's not getting the ball. But I mean, that was last year. Yeah uh, he had games where he just went missing. Then he had games where he was really switched on and working hard. I don't know if it's work rate, but yeah, I'm not sure if it was he rotating through a half forward flank for most of the night,
Yeah, pretty much.
and just off the bench, or was he going through the wing as well?
I think it was just off the bench. I didn't see him up the ground too much. He might have had. Did he have a couple of CVAs, big man?
Just having a look. So just to clarify, sorry, I have to get it back up on my bloody phone. Here they are. So for the Crows, the centre bounces were, just to clarify, it was Dawson with 22, Berry 22, so they shared the most. Saligo 16. He had more than I realised, actually. 16, there you go, boss. 16 for none.
For none.
Yeah, Rochelle 11, then Rankin and Thilthorpe 10 apiece, Peatling 9. So that was it, with no one else. So it's still a pretty tight group in there.
So again, I didn't see Keys at the feet of Thilthorpe or Tex or Fogg at any stage during the game. Pardon me. I know I've mentioned that our entries of forward 50 were rubbish, but for them to get no crumbs, none of them. We had no potency from our small forwards, in my opinion.
Yep, no, you're right. I wonder whether Keys had like a role with one of their defenders. I'm not really sure. I'd be interesting because did he have a lot of game time?
Yeah,
Yeah, he's
yeah.
85%, was it? I think.
NT Rabbit saying check Keys' heat map. I'll have a look. Where are you, Benny? No, yeah, 85% game time. Let's have a look at your heat map. Oh, where is it? But yeah, so he's just running up and down the the ground, and he's not actually getting anything out of it. Like, and you talk about inefficient running. Benny Keys would run all day, but he still didn't get a hell of a lot of it. So what's the bloody point? Only 144 metres gained, so he's running up the ground, but he's not actually delivering the ball inside. Another one who I thought went back to his old traits was Alex Neil-Bullen, hardly sighted, even though he had 17 disposals. Had no impact on the game whatsoever. Only one tackle, 3 marks, 5 contested and 11 uncontested possessions. Only 3 inside 50s. And I don't think he had any goal assists. He might have had 1 goal assist. No goal assists. So I'm starting to wonder with these high hooks. So let's just think about it this way: if our game is chip 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 up the ground, then the blokes that I want to see connecting are Pedler, AMB, Benny Keys, and our mids. But what we end up getting is either Murray and Worrell coming up from behind, or Miller, or our midfield sort of cutting in sideways. We're not actually the lead ups that we're doing, and I was going to get to this with Darcy Fogarty. The lead ups that we're getting aren't the players that should be. It should be A and B. It should be Pedler. But those are the blokes that should be pushing up, and either offering targets or running off at the 70-metre mark to carry the ball forward and then deliver. But we're not getting any of that from any of them at the moment. Like, A and B had 3 inside 50s. So what was he doing with his 17 disposals?
Not a whole lot. No, it wasn't his greatest game. I think that was pretty clear. He obviously played really well against the Pies, but I mean, I think this was one of the problems of the night, boss. We just had too many players down, and their corresponding players who were on the similar levels and talent level, a lot of them had great nights. I mean, the only ordinary players for the Bulldogs were a couple of their kids like Hines and Croft. For the most part, a lot of their fringe players really stood up and did their part, whereas a lot of our guys, and when I say fringe, A and B is not fringe, but he's not in our best 10 players. But a lot of those guys just didn't do their part. Like Pedler's another one who didn't. There's a few others you can list off in that regard too, and I think that makes such a big difference, compared to the Collingwood game, which I know we didn't play amazing football that night, but if you look at our performances across the board, pretty much everyone played their role except for probably, and actually I shouldn't say played their role because Ibis did, but all of them had pretty decent nights except for Toby Murray. Whereas Friday night, I don't think you could say the same. I think there was at least half a dozen guys that were definitely underperformed to their ability.
It's surprising for round 2. Like, how can you be flat in round 2, Brownie? Especially after sorry to interrupt, but just to finish that point, I always think you can have a great away win, but unless you consolidate it by winning the next home game, that great away win means nothing. And we've now wasted that MCG win against Collingwood. We're back to square one.
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, I was with our slow start with a few injuries. I was probably expecting we were going to be like 0-4 after the first. So I was actually happy we got that win against Collingwood because that keeps us, like, if we can jag a win against Freo and be 2-2, I reckon we're probably ahead of where we could have been. But you're right. I think there were too many guys that just, well, my impression when I was at the game is that we just weren't working hard enough. I don't know whether, and maybe that
Yeah.
doesn't make sense when you're saying we covered more territory than them. But when it mattered, I don't think closing down options and that kind of thing. I thought we were just a bit lazy, and maybe some of our guys just need to have a bloody think about it, because the whole thing about AFL football is no, you only got to be 2% off and you lose the game. Every team's capable of beating you, and we've just got to be more consistent week in, week out. At the moment, where there's a big sort of void from our best to our worst, and we've got to try and close that gap.
There was a gap there right for you, big man. I left it right there.
I heard you typing away, mate. No, look, I think you said it pretty well, Brownie. Like, I mean, look, we've been pretty negative tonight, and at the end of the day, we played a team that's hot to trot, and we went down by 6 points. I know it goes deeper than that.
They hadn't beaten us
not
here
just
since
score.
1938.
No, but they also beat Brisbane at the Gabba as well.
John Curtin was Prime Minister the last time the Western Bulldogs beat us here.
I'm just saying, we lost them by a goal. Brisbane got beaten on their home deck by a goal, and they smacked Giants by 80 points. Bulldogs at the moment are a team you just don't want to play them. And I
don't accept that. I don't accept that. I'm sorry, big man.
Really, because I reckon they are like we were
that.
at the start of last year, where we were just firing on all cylinders in the first few rounds. You didn't want to play us, and I don't think you want to play the Bulldogs right now. There's incredibly fit in terms of the players they've got on the park. They've basically got one or two outs.
I'm going to start calling you Matthew. I'm going to start calling you Matthew Nix, because it's those teams that you want to play. They're the teams that you want to play. If you're a successful club, and if you're on a trajectory for success, then you want to play those teams, especially at home, and put them away. And we played like we were scared little bloody pussycats who wanted to stop them from scoring, and it did absolutely no good for us anyway. I hate that mentality, big man. There's never a team that you shouldn't want to play.
I don't disagree with the mindset you have. I'm just saying sometimes it's not just about who you play, but it's when you play them. And I think that when everything comes out in the wash throughout the entire year, I think things will even up a bit. It's not a great loss. It's obviously you don't want to lose any game at home, but there are a lot of good teams out there that are firing on not all. When I say they're firing on all cylinders, a team like Bulldogs right now, they're probably playing the best footy they'll ever play throughout the year, like we played earlier in the year last year. And unfortunately, we got them down. And I think our best footy is probably going to be in the back half of the year. And at that stage, teams probably won't want to play us, if you know what I mean. So I think when it all comes out of the wash,
the wild card spot.
Potentially, but I don't think the Bulldogs are to be messed with this year. I think it's clear that they actually are a pretty big threat.
We came top last year. We should be the team that people don't want to mess with. And when we play fast footy, we are the team that people don't want to mess with because they can't fucking hold us. The problem is that in 8 quarters this year, we've played that way for 2 quarters. And in those 2 quarters, we have soundly outscored our opposition. So I'm wondering whether the coaching staff have made the transition from being a scrappy little fighter to being an elite team, because at the moment we're playing to contain teams rather than to destroy them, and that's a mindset thing in my opinion.
I don't like the way we're playing. I'm just saying you also have to give some credit to the opposition. We were in a position to win that game, and we were outclassed in the last 10 minutes or whatever it was of that game when we should have won the game. And I think that just showed that we're not quite in sync just yet, and we've played a team that is. Chances are both of us will be in the finals. They will definitely be in the finals, and we should be in the finals by the end of the year. But I don't think we're good enough right now to be basically locking in a win every game. Includes this week. Obviously, we're playing Geelong and Geelong. That's going to be a bloody tough game too. And yeah, we could be 1-2. We could be 1-3 heading to Gather, which looks terrible. But I think when everything comes out the wash, I think our win-loss column will stack up reasonably well. So I'm not going to lose the plot just yet about losing to Bulldogs by 6 points. I think we're gonna have worse losses than that this year, if that makes sense. We're also going to have better performances as well.
Brownie, am I overreacting?
I can see both sides. I certainly agree that the Bulldogs are probably playing they're playing with a certain amount of so much confidence from the start of the game. But I also understand your point. If we were more proactive, we don't let them play like that. So it's a catch-22. But I do agree with Big Man. We've got a hell of a lot of upside when we get a few guys back. The thing that worries me is if we get a few more injuries, it could make things difficult. You can't afford to get too many games behind. I think there's going to be a few. I think there's probably last year there was only 9 or 10 teams that were fighting for the top 8. I think this year there's going to probably be 12 teams fighting for the top 8, and now it's the top 10 anyway. But I think there's a few teams that have improved.
Yeah,
We've got a harder draw. We've started with injuries, so we're up against it a bit. But I still think, yeah, once we hit the lead on Friday night, we shouldn't have let that one go. But I thought, as Big Man said, they just showed a bit more composure in the last 5 to 7 minutes than we did. We just panicked and we couldn't get it done.
Last player I want to touch on is Riley Thilthorpe. 13 touches, 2 goals, 6 marks, 3 clearances, 8 contested possessions, 2 marks inside 50 and 3 inside 50s. At what point during the season, Big Man, do you slap the $2 million contract in front of him? Because he's got to be a Crow for life, that fella.
he does. I think he was. I don't know if he was preserving himself with that $2 million contract or not, but he did not want to jump in at centre bounce. If you noticed, anytime he was in
why
there,
would you?
he was
He shouldn't have been in there.
No, but he looked like someone who obviously hasn't done a lot of work there in the summer, which is correct. He hasn't. But also, he looked like a guy that really didn't want to smash his knee in. It didn't work having him in the centre. I can see why they're really pushing for Murray to be that second backup. But look, no doubt. I mean, he's out of contract in 2028, though. I don't think we have to rush this sort of thing. And he's a homegrown kid, Crow supporter. He's living a pretty good life on the beach and everything like that. I don't think he's a flight risk. The only issue would probably be like if Tasmania come
I was
out
going to
with
say.
$1 bajillion.
I was going to say
But,
Tasmania have got very open bank accounts.
They do. Hopefully they get most of those in the first year, the 2 that they get to ransack teams. Again, because he's local though, I get I agree that we have to chuck him in, and Cal Toomey says it's $2 million and $2 million it's got to be, I guess. But yeah, I'm not worried about losing him at this point. Maybe if we finish bottom the next 2 years or something, maybe. Otherwise, I'm not.
Four Eyes Billy in the chat saying that I'm just trying to provoke reactions. If anyone thinks if we'd have won that game that it wasn't an absolute steal, then I think we were watching a different game. I'm not trying to provoke reactions at all. I think on paper we should have won that game comfortably, and we absolutely put ourselves behind the 8 ball through a silly game plan. And if we play like that against Geelong next week, Brownie, Tom Stewart will have 6,000 posies, take 45 intercept marks, and have the highest amount of rebound 50s in AFL history.
Agreed. He tends to do that against us too because we have him, and he's been the spare that's just taken intercept mark after intercept mark. So yeah, I'll be shocked if we don't play a more aggressive, direct game style next week. But yeah, time will tell.
Last player, sorry, I missed the Texan because I thought the Tex had a particularly good game and has started the season well again. Had 11 disposals but kicked 3 goals, and including a lovely 55-metre bomb to get us going. 7 marks, 1 contested possessions, 2 inside 50 marks, and 3 inside 50s. I think what I'm seeing from Tex at the moment, which I've really enjoyed, is his ability to work up the ground and hold those lead-up marks under some pressure. He was under more pressure this week than he was last. And really at the moment he's providing quite an outlet for us, one which Darcy Fogarty isn't providing. And I just want to ask both of you gentlemen who were at the game, because sometimes it's not evident on the TV, why isn't Darcy able to get free on those lead-ups? He always seems to be running up with someone on his hammer, whereas Tex can seem to get separation. Did either of you notice that, and perhaps why it is?
Big man. Well, I'll say I didn't actually notice. I did notice him leading quite regularly, but the ball just wasn't being delivered that way. So he didn't really have a lot of opportunity. But I reckon he makes, you know, 2 or 3 leads as the ball's coming in. I think he works hard.
No doubt
But
he
at
works
least when
hard.
he was running, well, he got a couple of opportunistic goals because he was like he made the lead. He didn't the ball didn't come his way, and he ran back into the forward line and dragged a couple of goals, which is not normally his style. To get those opportunistic goals, so that was actually good that he contributed in that way. But I think it was just there wasn't a lot of room in the forward line because the ball was coming in
I'm
so
talking
slowly.
up the
So I just
ground
don't
though,
think.
Brownie. I'm talking up
Yeah,
around the wings when he's moving up. He always seems to be running up with someone on his hammer. He doesn't seem to be able to do that push off and then get 3 meters on his opponent. He always I don't know whether he's like, I must watch him one day, because I just like, he works incredibly hard and he gets a lot of difficult ball dropped on his head. I acknowledge all of that. I just wonder sometimes whether he's able to get the same amount of separation as someone like Tex.
No, it's a
Yep.
good point. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I muted myself accidentally before. I was talking and then Brownie just interrupted me and I was like, oh shit, I've done something wrong here. But no, I was just saying about Fog is that you're right, he just can't get separation, and this is one of those things where I'll probably have to watch it again live to know. There's so much to look at that it's
Yeah.
probably something I didn't notice, but if he can't get separation, he really struggles because he's got those shorter arms.
Yeah.
So he can't really outreach his opponent. It's definitely an issue right now for him. He's still finding ways to impact. He's kicked two bags of 2 the first couple of rounds, but I agree, we're not utilising well enough. I think that's why I prefer him pushing up the ground and getting a bit of space, because one, he's a good ball user, but also because it doesn't force him as much into contested marking situations where he just doesn't have the reach.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just something that occurred to me. And like, he had 11 touches, kicked 2 goals, 6 marks, 2 inside 50s, 2 marks inside 50, 3 inside 50s, and a goal assist. I mean, it's a good night from the big fella. But God, he has to work hard for his ball, and he's always got someone on his hammer. And I don't know. I'm going to take more notice when I can. I'm going to the Freo game. I might just keep an eye on him, because I just feel like, of the 3 tools, he's the one that seems to have to work the hardest for his possessions. And whether that's because he doesn't have that acceleration to put 2 or 3 meters on his opponent off a push off, whereas like Tex is not fast, but Tex seems to be able to get that couple of steps on his opponent when he's up the ground. And I'd love Darcy to be able to get a bit more easy ball because he must be absolutely toast every week after the game. T-Vol makes a good point, actually. We need to move the ball quicker for Fog to be effective. I think that's a very good point, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I
agreed.
will say, you're touching on Fog, but just quietly, Tex, that was some vintage stuff in Tex on the week on Friday.
Oh, it's a great
Geez,
game. He's
we're
had a
gonna
great start to the season.
miss him, mate, when he's gone. The way he's going, who knows? Maybe I said this is his last year. I mean, it's a long season. Let's be honest. Chances are it's still his last year, but he looks. I mean, the great thing is he looks better than he probably has, definitely compared to last year, and maybe even the year before. And last year he still kicked 40 goals. I'm not saying he had a bad year last year, but he came into the year last year with some back issues and hamstring issues. This time around, he looks really fresh. I know he got clean bowled in the first few minutes with that ball on the wing. I thought to myself, oh boy, he's not bending over tonight. But no, he got his act together and he's got it in his leg. He's still got his leg. He's still kicking over 50 meters. Like, there was a stage where we worried he'd lost that sort of long bomb, but he's still got it. So,
Yeah.
God, he's still a treat to watch. He's such a good player, and he's a guy that he Tex knows his limitations, but he also knows what he's good at, and that's freakish ability around goals and knowing where to be. And he was pretty big. I probably could have considered him for one vote actually on the weekend. I think he was definitely in the mix. He was very good for us.
Yeah, agreed. I thought he was quite good. It's been a pretty solid start to the season for young Texan. And, what do you got to keep just playing him. Now, just put up the best and fairest stats after round one. And I just want to, again, reiterate that if people can avail themselves of chucking in some votes, oh, for goodness sakes, why is it doing that? Get off. Then that'd be great. After round one, we had Miller on 2.9, Worrell on 1.7, Thilthorpe on 1.6, and Neil Bullen on 1.5 with Lockie McAndrew, Braden Cook and Tex on a point each. As it says there, the voting is still open. The voting will close at 6 p.m. on Tuesday. And, of course, Macca and I will talk about those votes for round two and also the cumulative votes on Tuesday night. Next week, of course, we've got a big game against Geelong. We haven't beaten them for a while. The last 3 games they've touched us up. They beat us by 20 points last year, and the only time we played against them. The year before we played them twice. They won by 5 points and 19 points. In 24, Tom Stewart touched us up both times. Last year, Bailey Smith got a hold of us with 35, and Max Holmes had 32.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and we had Matt Crouch and Mitch Hinge as our highest disposal winners. So, yeah. But before we finish up, boys, how do you see next week going?
Well, I'm going to suggest that we're going to have to change the way we play. We're going to have to play with more conviction and more positivity. And if we do that, I reckon we've got to be a reasonable chance. I don't think Geelong are, going to be playing their best football early in the year. If we're ever going to win a game there, I think this is a bit of a chance. We might not be at top strength, but I just think our forward line's so potent if we can get the ball in quick and just play with some real desire and drive and positivity. I reckon we might be half a chance.
Large human.
Look, I would say that. I mean, I try to be positive, but then I always tip against us. So I'm a bit of a hypocrite in that sense.
You are, mate. You are. I'm prepared to call that. Yeah.
Thanks, boss. I think that this is one of those games where I'd sort of just write it off at the start of each year and say, well, we're not winning that. And I wonder if that sort of has infested itself over the years into the players as well, where they just sort of dread rocking up at that ground. Um, Eventually, every curse has to be broken, doesn't it? And I don't think Geelong are in the sort of form that they've been in previously. Not that that's mattered too much when we were playing in Geelong, but yeah, we just didn't have a really tough time playing them there. We often make a fist of it, but we just end up losing by 3-4 goals in the end each time. So do I probably expect that to happen again? Yeah, probably do. I think the worry for me is just, and I know that's whinging a bit, but it is bullshit, Boss, that we're playing a team that's coming off a bye, whereas we're coming off consecutive 6-day breaks. Not sure why that's the case. Again, the fixturing is just mind-boggling sometimes. That's just, yeah. And I think it will make an impact, particularly given how underdone we are. We lose Archie, obviously, potentially Laird. I don't think that's going to shift the needle too much, those losses, as much as I do rate Archie. He hasn't been in great form for us just yet. But we don't have much cavalry to come in. Hopefully Rankin has a better game. That might help. But, I just think we're up against it again with this one. And then look at the start of the year. I said if we can be 2-2 going into gather round, I think I'd absolutely take that because it was always going to be a hard start to the year. So we have to win one of these next two games, and Freo are going pretty well at the moment, but I still think that's the easier of the two games. So I'm probably going to say we're not due for a loss, we'd just have one, but I think we're probably going to have a struggle to get over the top of the Cats on Thursday night. And it doesn't help too, Boss, by the way, that our SANFL trial game was on Saturday, so those guys who played in that only have a 5-day break, so it's pretty hard for them to push into the team coming off that too. 5-day break. So it's all a bit of a mess, really, the whole fixturing. And I just think,
it's an absolute mess, and it shouldn't be a mess.
Yeah, especially this time of year. You think this is when it's easiest to fixture things, but no.
I mean, surely surely the Crows and the SANFL could have got together and made sure that we had a Friday night trial game, at the very least.
Yep. Even a Thursday. I don't know. It just seems ridiculous. You know, you got kids playing on Wednesdays and Thursday nights, but we can't get the bloody AFL and SNFL players to do it. I don't know. But look, it sounds like I'm making excuses, but at the end of the day, I'm just sort of suggesting why I think we're going to find it tough. And I think the more important thing is we just need to play better standard footy. If we lose, but we're actually playing a better standard of footy, I'll probably actually feel okay going to the Freo game. But if we see more of what we saw on Friday night, then yeah, it's not going to be pretty.
I think that's my concern, Brownie, that it's not so much the effort or whatever, although you could argue that maybe the effort was down a little bit. But it's the style of game that I just don't see beating too many teams, and Geelong is the classic where you don't want to move the ball slowly against them. They will absolutely destroy you.
Yeah, and we had some success like last year, moving the ball quick against them in the first half, and we got a pretty good point. I think we maybe just blew up because of fitness. That was after a 5-day break, wasn't it? I think.
And a Gold Coast game. Short turnover.
Yeah, so that sort of gives you a bit of confidence that if we do play that fast game, we can score against them. It's just a matter of with a few players underdone, can we keep that kind of game style up for long enough periods? And obviously you can't do it for the whole game, but you want to do it for longer periods and only really defend when they're forcing you to defend. But yeah, for some reason I think we might be half a chance. So yeah, hopefully we just come out and play that really aggressive style of football and see what happens.
Yeah, I'm in two minds because I still think Geelong are on the slide a little bit, but I'm actually a little shocked that we're playing this slow football. I would have thought that the back half of last season would have shown the coaching staff that that's not the go. All the stats point to speed of ball movement and efficient possession, all the rest of it. Those numbers, big man, that you brought up earlier with regards to us running more than any other side, that smacks to me of a workman-like coach who'll look at GPS numbers and say, well, at least we're working hard, instead of being analytical about it and saying, well, why are we working so hard and getting so little reward? And, you know, a lot of people have said in the chat, you know, we only lost to Bulldogs by 6 points and we could have won it and all the rest of it. That's all well and good, but the simple fact is that for a long period of the game we were out of it, and the only reason we were in a position to snatch it was because we played fast, aggressive football for a short period of time. So, do I think we can beat Geelong? It depends. It depends what game plan gets put on the bloody whiteboard, in my opinion. If the game plan of the first half gets put on the whiteboard, we'll get absolutely obliterated. But if the hard and fast and aggressive and adventurous game plan gets put on the whiteboard, then I think we've got the tools to beat Geelong. Unfortunately, as much as I am positive about the group, I just have fallen in a big hole about the coaching group. So I'm going to say we're going to get done, because I think we'll try to control the ball again, and I think we'll just fall in the same hole that we have in the first couple of weeks in doing so.
Do you think we almost need to get it smashed at some point if we keep playing this way? Because we lost by 6 points and we could have won that game on Friday. So do you think we actually might need like a game where we just get absolutely pummeled for us to change our ways?
It's a fair point, big man, and something that frustrated me, and I don't know about you lads, but when I was watching Nix's presser, he didn't seem terribly cut up about it. He was more about supporting the boys, and, you know, had a bit of a laugh about Geordie Butts and the throwaway line, second goal would have been handy. Well, no, his second goal was critical. His second shot on goal was critical, and he should have kicked it. Nix, to me, didn't look like he was hurting enough. And, as you said, Brownie, a couple of, for whatever reasons, it's like, well, shit, mate, you're the one that puts them on the park. So I don't know.
Correct.
I think you're right, big man. I think we do need a touch up, and I think the team that's going to touch us up is going to be Gold Coast.
Yeah, it's not for a while, is it?
Not for a while, but they're going to be the ones that'll touch us. I wouldn't be surprised if we got a touch up from Freo either. They're in great form,
and they're quick, and they're dynamic. They're basically what we aren't. So yeah, they could be the one.
Yeah. So all right, well, probably more negative than people might have expected given the margin, but I think it was the manner in which we played that was probably the cause of that. Just before we go, thanks to everyone who's joined us on Discord and on YouTube. Another great showing there. Lots of people ranking themselves up there. Sorry the stream handles weren't working tonight, but I've had a busy weekend, so I'll get to fixing those over the coming weeks. Large fella, thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you. I mean, you say it wasn't very positive. I tried my best, boss, but you weren't having much of it. So.
Nah, I wasn't having it. You stick the Guernseys up your ass.
They look good. They look really good. Anyway.
Yeah, they're great. They're awesome.
But look, to me, it's one of those things where I think if you look deeper than just the scoreboard, it is some hard reading, and it was hard to watch at times. But it's still just round two. Let's hope we see. I think we just want to see the style more than anything, than anything to improve and suit us better, because we know we've got firepower, but there's no point having firepower if you don't use it. So hopefully, I don't know. Even if we don't get the win, like I said, I think I just want to see just some more dare and dash, and starting this Thursday.
Yeah, a winning, positive brand of football, Brownie. That's what we want, isn't it, mate?
It'd be good. I'll be sitting in a bar in Chiang Mai watching the game.
Oh,
Thursday.
yeah, good on you, mate.
Thursday lunchtime. So let's hope I don't spoil my lunch. But and then the Sheffield Shield final after that. So there's a fair bit of sport on Thursday.
Well, and of course the mighty you might be able to watch me on Frogbox too next week.
Well, if it's a slow day in Chiang Mai, I might. You just never know.
Dear. So it's just you and me next week, big man. And if my cricket final goes the right way, it might be just you.
Oh, no. Oh, well. I mean, I talk
We'll see
a lot of that anyway, mate, so...
Yeah,
You might
I'll
go to
just,
midnight, big man.
No, I can steer the ship, mate, but I'd still prefer if Boss runs the show, but good luck in your cricket final, mate.
no, we got it sorted, mate. Don't worry about that.
All right. Love the confidence.
All right. Well, look, thanks to everyone on YouTube and Discord, as I said, for joining us. A great night as always on the chat. We will be back on Tuesday night where Macca will go absolutely apeshit about Matthew Nicks, I'm sure. And we'll talk about the match a bit more, plus some other AFL Crows and other news. And in the meantime, be good, stay safe, and we'll see you on Tuesday Night Live. Good night all.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye.